I picked up a project about entrepreneurship, called it Super Entrepreneur to kick it off with. And what is Super Entrepreneur as well? It's a study by the MAA into the entrepreneurial culture that exists within big blue chip companies. I'm sure you guys are all experiencing quite a lot of change going on in your client organisations. And so we wanted to just explore that. So spend some time focusing on actually our clients and how they're thinking and how they're behaving and how they're changing. And looking at really, I guess, the context for that change within those clients' organisations. And very importantly, the implications clearly for you guys and for us around what that means in terms of how we have to behave and think differently towards those organisations and what they're looking for fundamentally from us. So that was the kind of the why. The how was, we started off with a hypothesis, and the hypothesis we started with was to say that a lot of the big blue chip organisations are built around principles of structure and scale, but yet a lot of the challenges that they're facing currently, those are not the fundamental requirements to deliver. So things like changing competitive context, changes in the implications and the impact of digital and social, a large number of competitive change, globalization, big data, fundamentally big things that are affecting those organizations. So the hypothesis was these companies, these big organizations, all of a sudden have, from 50 years of being able to behave in a fairly fundamentally the same way, just scale and grow, to actually having to adopt some very different behaviours, which is requiring a greater focus around entrepreneurialism within those organisations. So that was the hypothesis. What I did was I conducted some interviews amongst they were all C-suite clients, talking about those issues, and it was really fascinating. So we talked to companies like Universal Music, Unilever, BMW, a variety, British Fashion Corporation, The Guardian, a whole load of companies, about 20 companies, and every single one of them supported the hypothesis and said it's actually fundamentally true that we as an organisation are having to think in more entrepreneurial ways than we've ever had to do in the past. What was interesting as well was every single company had some brilliant examples. Once you start talking to them about their business, it was quite instructive for me, talking to them about their business much more than talking about what you want to get from them. They were opening up really interesting ways and really specific examples of how entrepreneurial culture was fundamental to the way they saw the business in the future. So the hypothesis was supported through a number of those interviews. What we then did was said, well, actually, as an agency group, we didn't feel that we could really tackle this subject objectively with enough information and objective knowledge. And I guess as importantly, create a voice that would be relevant for media to create media output on behalf of the MAA. So we put together a panel, which I'll come on to in a second. We created a debate amongst the panel, and then on the back of that we created, I mean, one of the things I decided fairly early on, however sort of pop it is, we felt it would be useful to create a kind of table of results, because that table of results then creates an opportunity for, I guess, media talkability, a talking point, as well as, I guess, an opportunity for agencies to focus and to think about those companies that are more entrepreneurial in outlook, and therefore think about how we tackle their business challenges in a different way. And then obviously a whole series of output that fell out of the back of that, which I'll just go through briefly. So this was the panel we put together. It was a pretty broad, diverse panel, but a panel of people who have objectivity, information, insight, and a degree of gravitas. So we had Anne Frank, who was a very kind of leading figure, CEO for the Chartered Management Institute. If any of you guys have met her, she's very vocal and contributed quite a lot. We had the Director General, John Longworth, from the British Chamber of Commerce. We had John Warren, the Director of Strategy for the British Council. We had Jonathan Goodwin, who's the founder of Lepe Partners. We had Julia Finch, who heads up Business and Consumer for The Guardian. Obviously, they were a key media partner for us. We had Keith Wiley, who's the Professor for Strategy and Entrepreneurship for the London Business School, so very much thinking about future leaders of organisations and the education process around it. We had Matthew Rock, who was co-founder of Real Business and an economist for the City AM. We had Mr. Knox. We had Stephen Chaliotis, who also was very heavily involved in some of the analysis that we put behind the project in terms of working out how to build a relevant table and a chart. So he's chairman of Super Brands and Cool Brands, but he's also CEO of a company called the Centre of Brand Analysis. So he does report on TV programmes when people are asking questions about brands and businesses. He's often quoted, and myself. And out of that, one of the outputs, and only one of the outputs, was this chart. This is the first year we put it together. So what we did was we got the panel to put a scoring system together of the top 100 blue chip companies. I won't go into details of how we identified who those companies were, and ranked them around two things. The first one was outlook, so more philosophical. So as a business, does that company inspire more entrepreneurial thinking in the way that it does its business, and does that impact the industry at large by a more entrepreneurial output? And then secondly, outlook, and secondly, in physical, tangible output. So how strongly were those companies able to demonstrate attitudes around entrepreneurship and put that into practice in terms of physical product and output that demonstrated they were more entrepreneurial. And then what we did is we created a combined scoring of those two things and then ranked them. It was a big debate, discussion topic about whether we should number them 1, 2, 3 or 4, and in the end opted for a AAA rating going down. Interestingly, amongst the panel there wasn't a single company that came up with a AAA rating, but there was a number of companies that came up with AA, etc., and worked down from that. So that's where we started. And then on the back of that, we did a whole series of other things. So we had a Guardian debate where we had a representative from the Guardian who was chairing the debate. We had the marketing director from Samsung, Ines van Gennep, there, and a few other people on a panel, and some of you guys might have been there. But we ran a panel debate around the subject of entrepreneurship in blue chip organisations. And we obviously have a website presence within the MAA site and a number of other things. So it's the start of a project. It's really focused on looking at our client organisations and how they are responding in a different way. And I guess challenging us as a group of agencies to think about how we behave differently. The one stat that I would say from all of the interviews that came up was that when asked about their entrepreneurial challenge and said, do the existing agencies that represent those companies, are they responding well or badly to the entrepreneurial challenges rather than the status quo institutional challenges? Were they doing a good or a bad job? Overwhelmingly, the answer was not doing a great job. So the existing agencies are much better at dealing with the institutional ongoing challenges of those organisations versus facing up to and helping them support them on the cutting edge, the sharp edge of the future of those companies. And I think that's a big watch out for us all.